Hello, I hope everybody has had a really good week. For those of you that didn't see the talk that I gave on Monday, my name is Owen. I teach animation on the animation course at Falmouth University, and one of the things I specialise in is teaching stop motion animation and puppet making. So on Monday I was at the museum and I gave a short talk introducing you to stop motion puppets and also showed you how to make one of these guys. I can't be at the museum again today. I developed a bit of a sore throat and a cough halfway through this week, and I'm absolutely fine. I don't have COVID, but I did have a little bit of a temperature and I've been asked to self-isolate for a couple of days, and I didn't want to pass it on to any of the really lovely people at the museum. So I've pre-recorded this for you at home today rather than live streaming on the museum. So I apologise for that. But it is what it is at the moment. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about animation and animation movement, and I'm going to show you how to make one of these, do a few steps and do a little bit of a walk. So the software I'm using to do this is something called Dragon Frame, which is the same software that Aardman Animation used to do their Shaun the Sheep and their animated films. It's a professional level animation. The reason I'm using that with you guys today is so that you can see what I'm doing as well as seeing the animation. It's quite a nice tool to demonstrate. It's not something that you have to buy. If you want to buy it yourself, if you've got anyone in the family who's dead keen on animation and looks like that they're going to do a lot of it, it's not the most expensive piece of professional software, but it is a couple of £100, so it's probably not something you're going to want to buy straight off, and you don't need to at all. So you can do really good stop motion on a mobile phone. There are lots of applications, other makes of mobile phone are available. There are lots of stop motion applications that you can use, but at the university our favourite one is one called OSnap, which is OSNAP, and you can get a free version of it to have a go at it, and if you like it then it is worth spending, I think it's about £5 on the full version of it, so it's not expensive. One of the things you need to do with a camera with stop motion is make sure that your camera is very securely secured to your stage or to the surface that you're animating on, and if you've got a tripod for your phone, then that's fantastic. Use a tripod. You don't have to have a tripod, and you don't have to buy a tripod, because a bag of sugar and a couple of elastic bands will also do nicely, or a lump of wood, or a tin of baked beans, or anything that's reasonably heavy and that's not going to move, and then you can put a couple of elastic bands round. And these are the elastic bands that the postman leaves on the doorstep, and attach your phone to it like that, and that just makes a really good solid base to your phone so that it's not going to move while you're taking a picture. You need your phone to be quite solid, because you don't want this to start happening if your phone moves in the middle of your animation. Something you also, while I'm talking about that, something that you need to bear in mind when buying an app or when downloading an app to do stop motion, it's good to get one that has voice control, because if you have to press the button on your phone every time you're taking a picture of your puppet, you're likely to move the phone a little bit, and then your animation is also going to start going like this because your camera is moving every time you're taking a picture. So most of the sort of better stop motion softwares, they'll have voice control or sound control, so you can clap and it'll take a picture, or you can say take and it'll take a picture. You can shout whatever you like at it and it'll take a picture. It does mean you've got to try and be a little bit quiet while you're animating, because you don't want to set the phone off by mistake, so it means you've got to be a little bit quiet when you don't want the phone to take a picture. But say I'm using something called Dragon Frame because I can show you what I'm doing, and I can show you the animation as I'm going along, which is quite useful. I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about how animation works, why it is that when we look at the television, when we look at a cartoon, or we look at something like the animation I'm about to do in a moment, why we see movement. Some of the older guys watching these, people kind of like my generation might have heard of something called persistence of vision. If you've heard of persistence of vision, forget about it. We used to think that persistence of vision had something to do with the way that we see movement on a piece of film or a piece of animation, but actually now the scientists know that it doesn't have anything to do with it. So when you watch television or a film or a drama or a piece of animation, what you're actually seeing is a series of still images that are being shown to you very, very quickly. So it appears as if it's moving. So if it's a live action movie that you're seeing at a cinema, then it's a camera that has taken lots of still pictures really quickly. If it's animation, if it's a cartoon, then it's maybe lots of drawings, or it's something that's been created in a computer where lots of still images are being shown quickly and it makes it look like it's moving. And the reason that they now think that that happens is because it's very similar to the way that our brain sees movement in the real world. So our brain is full of these tiny little things called neurons, and there's billions and billions of them, and they talk to each other through little impulses of electricity. So our eyes take in the world around us and create an image, a still image of the world around us, and that shoots down the neurons, down these little pulses, to an area at the back of our head, somewhere around here, our visual cortex, which is where all the visual processing takes place. And our brain basically puts together lots of bits of information about still images, and it creates a moving image out of those bits of information about still images, which is what happens when you watch a film and when you create a piece of animation. So they think that the reason that animation works, that we can create movement out of still images, is because that's actually how our brain is seeing movement in the world all day, every day around us. So science is amazing, and science and art aren't separate things. I think the most exciting science is the science that actually relates to things like art and animation and movies. So an interesting fact about animation movement. The other thing I'm just going to talk about a little bit before I make this guy walk is one of the principles of animation. So one of the companies that was really important in starting up animation was the Walt Disney Studio Company, and the first animators at Walt Disney Studios devised what they called 12 principles of animation, and I'm just going to talk to you about one of those. If you want to know the rest, you'll have to come and study animation at the university. So the principle I'm going to talk to you about is called slow in, slow out. And what that principle means, it's when something moves, if I'm going to lift my hand up, when something moves, it's not moving at full speed straight away. It's actually moving quite slowly to start with, and then it starts moving a bit faster, and then just before it stops moving, it slows down. It's the same when a car starts moving. You've probably heard the phrase 0 to 60 in 10 seconds when people want to show off about how great their cars are. They start moving slowly, and then they pick up speed and go to full speed. They accelerate. And it's exactly the same thing when a hand starts moving, a head starts moving. Every time I move, the beginning of the move is quite slow, then it picks up speed, and when I stop moving, it's slowing down again. So it's slow in, slow out. And I'm going to demonstrate how that works when this guy starts walking, because I'm going to start off by making very, very tiny movements. So if you want something to move slowly in animation, you make very, very tiny movements. If you want it to make a bit faster, you move a bit faster, you make slightly bigger movements, and that's how you create that acceleration and deceleration, which is a really important part of making something move in a way that looks like it's living. So okay, I've got a little piece. I talked about this a little bit on Monday. I've got a piece of double-sided sticky tape. I don't know if you can just about see it attached to my stage here, and I'm just going to take off the top layer of that so the top sticky side is exposed. Now I've got a layer of MDF here, and as you can see, I have spared no expense on the background scenery. I hope you appreciate the lengths that I've gone to with this. And this sticky tape is this stuff, which is a removable double-sided sticky tape, which means that when I'm finished, I can peel it off this board without it leaving a sticky mess. You can use normal double-sided sticky tape, which is much cheaper than this. This is quite expensive, and I got this off of that well-known auction site. You can also get it off that well-known other website that begins with A and has a Z in it somewhere. But you can use normal double-sided sticky tape, but just beware, most double-sided sticky tape does really stick to things and it's quite hard to get it off. So if you're doing this on your parents' kitchen counter or tabletop, please don't stick double-sided sticky tape to it that they can't get off again, because I won't be very popular. So do make sure you ask basically before you stick double-sided sticky tape to anything. I've used a bit of MDF. You can use a tabletop, a counter, a piece of cardboard. If you're using double-sided sticky tape that isn't going to come off, don't use something that's kind of important. And you can use a cardboard box, or you can use anything for the background. It doesn't have to be something particularly kind of posh or professional looking, as you can see from the one that I've got. Okay, I'm ready to start animating this guy now. Now, remembering what I was saying about slow in, slow out, the very first movements I make with him are going to be very small movements because he starts moving quite slowly. But once he's got his foot going forwards and he's starting to walk, he's then going to be up to speed and up to pace, and he's going to walk at a constant pace until he stops, and then I'm going to use slow movements again at the end. So I'm going to start off, before I start animating, before I start taking any frames, I'm going to I've got my software set up so that this is going to play at 12 frames per second, which is quite a nice rate to give you a good, a sort of good speed of animation. Before I start animating, I'm going to take about half a second with nothing moving on the set at all, with him not moving at all, so that when I'm watching this back and I press play, the movement doesn't start immediately, because if the movement starts immediately you press play, you always miss it because your attention can't go from pressing the play button to watching your character move instantly. So I'm going to take about half a second. I'm going to move out of the frame in a minute and take about half of a second without him moving at all. Okay, so that's 6 frames at 12 frames a second is half a second of him not moving. So okay, this guy at the moment is looking at his feet, and if he was going to start walking while he's looking at his feet, he's going to pretty quickly fall over and bump into things. So before he starts walking, he's going to lift his head up. So I'm going to move him just a tiny bit. Move his head up just a little bit. That's maybe a little bit too much. There. And then I'm going to move his head up just a tiny bit more. And take a picture. And he's going to move his head right up so he's like walking nice and proud, and then he's going to start moving, his left leg is going to start moving forward. So he's just lifting, just bending that knee and lifting that leg up a tiny bit to start with. Remember, slow in, slow out. So start with small movements. He's not walking at full speed to start with. Then that leg is just coming up a little bit more. So it's just off the floor a little bit more. You can see that knee starting to bend. And then he's going to move it right off the floor. Come on, move your leg. Thank you very much. Foot off the floor. Just going to bend his foot a little bit so his toe is pointing upwards. Oh, toe's pointing a little bit too upwards. That looks like he's broken his foot. And then he's going to start moving a little bit more quickly. So that leg is coming forward. He's leaning a little bit forward to make that step. That right arm's coming forwards a tiny little bit. Left arm's going back a tiny little bit. Don't want him bending forwards too much. I'm being quite picky about this. You don't need to be quite this picky. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, so I've got to try and do it quite well. Okay, so I'm not going to talk you through all of this one frame at a time, otherwise you'll be falling asleep before he's taken a couple of steps. So via the wonders of modern technology, I'm going to speed this up a little bit, and I'm going to come back and talk to you at the end once he's taken a few steps. So you can see at the end here, I've gone back to doing very small moves as he comes to a standstill and turns around to face the front. And then I'm going to do another half second without anything moving on the end. So we can have a look at that the whole way through. Off it goes. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. That's it for me. Have a really lovely weekend. I hope you've had a good week. Enjoy your animation, enjoy making your pipe cleaner people, and have a lovely weekend. Take care, everybody. Bye.